Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another week episode of The Universal Lens. I'm John Emilio, along with Anthony's back. Now this guy's missing. Henry had some business to take care of out of state, some real estate stuff he had to take care of, so he wasn't here able to join us this week. But Anthony's back, so we're 2 out of 3 again. Next week, I believe we'll all be back.
Last couple of weeks, it's been tough to get us all in the same room.
Yeah, that happens. Yeah, life does happen. So we welcome Anthony back, and we'll see Henry when he comes back next week with our new setup again. Like I said last week, so everything went well. The recording went out really well. Sounded great. It looks nice and out on camera. So this will be the setup going forward. I think we're gonna have a couple of guests coming up in October. One I believe is Tom Rizzo. I'm working on. I actually have a TV, an old monitor that I'm going to see how I'm going to get it integrated into this, so we could look at them when we do it. And then I'm trying to get somebody I had my coaching class with. She's a therapist and a coach, Sherry Herman. So I got to actually get on her schedule for sometime in November, and we'll see how that goes. But until then, we welcome everybody back. Hope everybody enjoyed last week's episode. Like I said, it's nice to have Anthony back.
It's I'm going to tell you, for one, I'm going to miss Henry because he always starts off the show with some kind of interesting story that happened to him, and that usually gets the ball rolling. You know,
you're absolutely right. So Henry tends to be the like, I'll throw it in his lap, just start talking, and then we go from there. And like he plays the role of, he's a storyteller, because he does. And it was kind of funny when we were in Greece.
He's good at it too.
He is. When we were in Greece, he was telling me, and he's talking, we were just talking about things. And I looked at him at one point, I'm like, does everything you say, he goes, what, start with a story? I'm like, yes. He's like, my wife tells me the same thing. He goes, I can't tell you something unless I tell you a story of how I got there. Well, he goes, sometimes I forget what I'm talking about halfway through.
You know, it seems like a lot of the life stories are actually like life lessons.
They are. Yeah.
So he attaches to those stories as in order to remember, like, maybe the emotion of the circumstance or whatever it might be that draws him back to it. You know.
Absolutely. So he is a storyteller. So and that was a great point by Anthony, because that's usually, like, if you pay attention to a lot of the shows, unless I have a topic that I'm dead on, like, hey, let's talk about this. And I kind of have one today, but let's talk about this. You know, it's usually Henry be like, he'll just start talking, and something just comes out of it, and before you know it, we just start.
He's got a wild imagination too. That helps.
Yeah, he does. So Henry, you missed, even though we're talking about you, even though you're not here.
See that? Now, I could tell a good story, but I'm Italian, so it's hard to do from a seated position. I'd have to flail my hands.
If you watch a show enough, you'll see that my hands are never like, I'm always like this.
You know, I don't notice it enough. Because I do the same thing.
Yeah, my hands are always like, I'm like this. I'm always doing something. So yeah, you could take you could take the boy out of Brooklyn, but you can't take the Brooklyn out of the boy.
Yeah.
The Italian. Oh, how you doing? Oh. So what I wanted to talk about today is, so we've talked about a lot of different things that people try to do, or different methods that they use to deal with things in their life, right? Mm-hmm. Whether it's meditation, mindfulness, forms of therapy, religion. I mean, and then there's the opposite of things that are those are all things that are helpful, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
Those are all things that are helpful. One of the things that I mentioned, actually, I'm going to remove the mindfulness for a second, but all those other things we mentioned are helpful. Then you have things on the other side of that spectrum, which people use to cope. I'm going to use coping mechanisms. People use to cope are things like substance abuse, whether it's drugs or alcohol, just getting involved in things, whether it's shopping or buying things, or being involved and having to keep my mind busy at all times
to numb.
Exactly. Yeah. That's great, to numb it, right? So there's one thing that all those things I mentioned, there's one thing that they can't do. You don't have sustainability in them. So when I say sustainability, I mean it's something that you're never looking for something more or the next one, because when you have, it's like renewable resources, right?
Yep.
Something that we're always looking for, a resource that could sustain us, right? Something, not something we're going to deplete, and well, now we got to look for something new, and then we deplete it. Now we got to look for something new. It's sustainable means it doesn't run out, it doesn't end, and it'll take you through your lifetime without a problem.
Yeah.
A lot of those things that we mentioned aren't sustainable. Especially the things on the other side, like the drugs, that none of that is sustainable. No. Whether you're a shopaholic, an alcoholic, a drug
lot
addict.
Of these things keep you from moving forward.
Yes.
They keep you in the same spot because, you just cannot get out of it.
Exactly. No, you can't. But so they're not sustainable. But what is the one thing that is sustainable? And that's why I pulled mindfulness out of it. Mindfulness, presence, awareness, whatever word you want to use, is sustainable. It is the only one that actually does not require you to do anything else once you understand it. It's a practice that you keep doing, yes, but it's not a practice that, okay, your mind's going to be like, okay, but now what? And now I have to find a different angle to it. And now I got to find a different angle to it. Now I got to attack this a different way. Well, John, we got to think about this differently now. And I have to conceptualize this in a different way for me to understand it again. A lot of the things, and even I'm going to go on a limb here, even a lot of forms of therapy aren't sustainable because they keep you always asking another question. And there's nothing wrong with being curious in life. I'm all for curiosity. I think curiosity is great. But in the world of, let's just say, anxiety, depression, or trauma, PTSD, when you're in your mind and you're always looking for something else, it's kind of hard to keep that, to sustain that without having to evolve it in a different way or get a different angle to it. So mindfulness is the one thing that once you understand it, it is sustainable.
It's almost like a plateau. I mean, once you get up there,
yeah,
it's almost easy sailing.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. It is. It's that one thing, I think, that when you get there, you understand it. Not that life becomes simple or easy, because life, like I said last week, life will kick you in the balls.
No, but if it becomes automated in your head, it will become easier because you're applying it without any effort at all.
Yes, but there'll still be challenges.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
Well, it's like you've said, it's an everyday practice.
It is, but it's a practice that doesn't need to change. There's nothing that changes. There's nothing better out there. There's nothing, I got to find the next thing, or and I see a lot of that in the world where people get caught up in keeping themselves occupied so they could stay engaged in things.
Yeah.
But the problem is, yes, it's great to keep your mind engaged. It's great to keep the mind busy to a certain extent, right? Especially in the practical world, whether you're building something, figuring something out, you're writing a book, whatever you do, that's all well and good. That's phenomenal. That's what the brain is. That's what the mind is for. But I think in dealing with the things that people deal with nowadays, that sustainability is something that's missing. Like people, I feel I see them and they're always looking for something else, whether they're posting things on social media. Like there's never a contentment.
Never satisfied.
There's never a satisfaction for, and
you know why? The world brings new problems every day. So
yeah, it does.
So imagine having this tool, this mindfulness and awareness automatically applied to things in your brain, and you're able to filter it through that. I think that could be really helpful. It's like finding the right oil for your car and never having to change it again.
Oh my God.
It runs so damn good.
That would be great, by the way.
You found the right oil. It runs so damn good. You don't have to change it anymore.
Yeah, that would be great. And you said
good with analogies.
Yeah, you said anal allergies. What you said?
Easy.
And you said a key word there: filter it through. Right? It is a great filter. But if anybody out there, whoever's out there listening, and you're trying different things and you can't seem to get to that place or understand that one thing, or you keep having to ask more questions, but how do I do this? But how do I do this? But how do I deal with this? But how do I deal with this? But how do I deal with this? That means whatever path you're taking might be helpful. I'm not saying it's not helpful, but it's not sustainable, because you need to keep asking the question, but why now? John, how do I do this now? How do I deal with this? And how do I deal with that?
Imagine,
how do I deal with that? And how do I deal with that?
The same analogy that I was using before. Imagine mindfulness as your oil filter. before it hits the engine. You're cleaning.
That's exactly what it does.
Yeah, you're cleaning it up, I think, And as long as you pass everything through that oil filter, I think you're going to keep that engine running pretty good.
And look, analogies are phenomenal for that one reason, because you might use the word oil filter or oil, and it
I
resonates.
like analogies. Yeah, exactly.
But it resonates with you, right?
Yeah.
And that's what's great. Like I would use the word lens, like to say glasses. 6 of one, half dozen the other. Yeah. So whatever analogy,
just like Henry's stories, like we were talking about before, these things resonate with him, and it makes such an impact that it's something you remember, and apply in different circumstances.
And you apply it in different circumstances. So I think using that filter will help you sustain and be able to not have a need or a want to constantly have to be doing something, engage in something, figuring out what the new thing is in order to find peace. Now, put that aside. It's like I said before, I'm all for keeping the mind active and discovering new things or inventing something, or
as long as you're not using it as a crutch.
Exactly. So you're using
I think you might have told me that one.
Yeah. Are you using the tool for you or against you?
Yeah.
And when people are, and I mean, we default a lot of times to drugs and alcohol. When people use drugs and alcohol and I was listening to Eckhart Tolle, and he didn't say this, but he had mentioned it. And I was at the gym one day, and it kind of hit me, and I wrote it down real quick. I'm like, they're not sustainable, and that's what I think that's what he was trying to say, but he didn't say.
You're having a drink for a good time. God bless you. It has nothing to do, Exactly. But if you're having a drink because you need to escape your issues and problems, and it becomes a consistent thing, then you got a problem.
Exactly. And I think that's the key thing. If you're doing it to escape something, then you're misguided in that approach. If you're like you said, great. If you're having a drink, you're out with your friends.
Yeah, if you're taking Percocet after a surgery, and then after that bottle runs out, you're searching for another one, you got a problem.
That's it.
You're masking that pain is all you're doing.
All you're doing is masking. And mindfulness is actually ripping off the Band-Aid and allowing the wound to heal. Yeah, but it's uncomfortable doing it. So in order to achieve that sustainability,
everything's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's growth, right? Anything that's worth doing is usually difficult in life. Anything that's worth doing is usually difficult in life. Ripping off that Band-Aid and allowing that wound to heal is the uncomfortable part of learning how to sustain in life. And it doesn't, like I said before, challenges keep arising, but now you have an understanding of. There's no more, when there's no more questions to ask, that's when you understand what this really is. So one of the big things me and Henry were speaking about this week, we had mentioned it in the show, people kept asking different questions during, like when they had a Q&A during the week. Oh, fair. Yeah, and people came up and they were asking different questions. And
what kind of questions out of curiosity? What do you ask a guy like that?
So one lady, and he had mentioned it last week, Henry, one lady came up, she was Jewish, right? And she had family and grandkids, and she was very worried for the world and very worried for this and very worried for that, and what can we do? And she's looking for an external answer, and his answer,
how do you answer that?
His answer was basic. He goes, by bringing presence into the world, you infect the person next to you, you make them a more conscious person. He goes, that is all you can do. He goes, so to worry about what the rest of the world is doing, you're losing your peace, your presence, and your time here, and you're spending it, oh my God, what's going to happen? What's going to happen? Whatever is going to happen is going to happen. We can't stop things from happening that
worrying about is not going to change
that
anything.
Out of our control. So he's like,
exactly.
He's like, so staying anchored in peace is where you can, is where
be most helpful.
Exactly. Be most helpful. And there was another one. She had a daughter who was going through a sex change, and how to, and the mother sounded like she was grounded. She was very supportive of her daughter or son. I forgot what it was, which was great.
But you don't go either way.
But
you're never wrong, John, on that one. So you know,
she was a boy, became a girl. I think it was a boy, became a girl, and she was very supportive. But yet she was still struggling with something, and she kind of asked him like, I don't even know if she knew what she wanted to ask, but it's like she accepted what her child was doing. She was very supportive of it, but she still was looking for something that was going to make it all better. And that's that whole, So
take away those emotions of,
So you think you understand it, but you obviously, and you're on the path and you're doing fine. But if you keep having to ask the question, then you haven't gotten it. You haven't, I don't want to say achieved enlightenment, but you haven't gotten there exactly yet, because you keep needing to say, okay, so how do I make this better? But his answer was, the point I was trying to make was, his answer, no matter what the question was basically the same with a couple different words so the person understood, was by being present and being mindful of and watching what's happening. And that's when you allow surrender and acceptance to really take hold. And you lose the need to ask the question. So I had told Henry one night when we were talking.
Yeah, because if you accept it, why would you keep on asking the question?
So it's one of Eckhart's books, and I believe it's The Power of Now. And I said this last week. I forgot which book it was. The last line, and I know this is repetitive from last week, but it's important for what we're talking about. The last line of the book was, how do I know when I've surrendered? Like, somebody was asking Eckhart a question. That's how it was written. Like, so Eckhart, how do I know when I surrendered? And his answer was, when you no longer need to ask the question. So the sustainability happens when you no longer need to ask the question. Not because I'm not going to ask the question because that means that, no, it's, you honestly understand there is no answer. The answer is there is no answer. It's pure acceptance of whatever is happening. Now, doesn't mean in a practical world there aren't things you could do, like to remedy a situation, but from a psychological, inner peace, whatever word you want to use, point of view, the sustainability happens when you no longer are looking for an external answer to an internal issue.
I completely understand. Let me tell you something. I wholeheartedly understand this issue.
Wow, this is good.
Once the conflict within yourself subsides and you accept what's happened and there are no more questions to ask, can you truly start to move forward?
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I'm assuming that will last. That will sustain itself.
It does.
There's just no other questions you can ask yourself. There's why, when, how. Why didn't I see this? Why didn't I do that? The questions have to stop, and you just have to accept where you are and what happened, and that you asking those questions aren't going to change anything.
Nope.
And you're just there. That's it.
You keep yourself stuck in a rut.
Yep.
You keep yourself stuck on a hamster wheel of,
it's over and
how
over
do I get
and over.
How do I get off the hamster wheel? How do I get off the hamster wheel?
It's a reoccurring nightmare every day.
And the simple answer is, how do I get off? How do you know how you get off a hamster wheel?
You jump off.
You stop running. You stop running, and you step off.
Yeah.
Like Buddha said, Buddha spent years trying to figure out what enlightenment was. He tried fasting, meditating for hours on end, and days and weeks and months. I mean, put himself through self-torture, trying to find presence. And one day under a tree, he realized that there was nothing to look for, and it was here all the time. And he realized there was no longer a need to ask a question of, how do I find presence? And he just dropped into it.
It's just there.
Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't external things in your life that happen that are going to be difficult or challenging. Yes, we're not going to paint the picture. And even any spiritual teacher will tell you, or even a good therapist who understands acceptance, can tell you, it's not like your challenge goes away because, I've accepted it. It's gone. No, your mind's going to be like, yeah, nice try. That's not how it works. Yeah, exactly. I'm going to keep reminding you of it. It's keep reminding me. That's fine. I'm not going to answer your questions, mind. I'm going to refocus on what I want to do. And all of a sudden you start having these periods of where that issue, whatever it was, isn't existing in your life. Then maybe it comes back for a little bit. Shows its ugly. It wants a poke. One day out of nowhere, it wants to poke its face.
But stop the battle of trying to stop it.
That's the key.
I think that's and now,
that's
I got to tell you, with my kids, when they tell me something's bothering them or something, you got to tell, it's not just get that out of your mind. Stop thinking about that and this and that.
That doesn't work.
Well,
enter sarcasm.
Yeah, exactly. But, these days, honestly, I tell them it's okay you're thinking about that.
Of course.
But you've got to be able to put that aside. And what's going to happen tomorrow is still going to happen, no matter how much you worry about it.
Or you don't want it to happen.
Or you don't want it to happen. These things are unchangeable. So, put it aside. put it aside, close your eyes, go to sleep, and so far it seems to work.
Well, because so what you're and it's kind of good that I don't want to say that we dumb it down for kids, but we keep it simple for kids, trying to use certain words.
Just like kids, I think even adults have to start from the beginning somewhere.
That's true.
But if you're an adult learning something new, it's baby steps the whole way.
It is.
Sometimes, no matter what.
Yeah. If you're dealing with a child and you start using big words, you might lose them.
Yeah. Well, you might lose me too.
Well, it's true. That's true. And I've been victim of doing that to people.
But I like that's why I like analogies. Personally,
analogies are great. Analogies. I'm a huge fan of analogies. But dealing with a child, that's great when you do that. You're able to express to them that the issue might still be there, but investing the energy in worrying about something that's going to happen it ruins the moment you're living in now. And when that moment comes and you have to deal with that uncomfortable thing, then you deal with that uncomfortable thing. And you're teaching that child that that's the sustainable energy in you that never runs out. That acceptance and surrender renews itself every time you do it. So every time I practice acceptance, it's like the battery recharges. So just to give an example. So picture you're dealing with something and it starts to weigh on you. You accept that it's there. You let go of the struggle. The mental struggle of
that's the exhausting
and
part.
all of a sudden, the battery it doesn't take immediately recharges. Just to give you like Anthony said, analogies. And here comes this, and it just renews itself. Boom. And here comes another challenge, right? And you feel like, oh, there's another challenge. You don't like it that it's there. Nobody's going to sit and go, oh wow, this is fun. This is happening to me right now. I want to get kicked in the nuts today. Let's go.
That's why they call them hurdles. There's one right after another.
Exactly. But this one, it's like running hurdles.
Yeah.
But you never get tired of having to make that leap or that jump.
And the jump's easier and
easier.
And
the jump's easier and easier because you're practicing, you're using a practice that doesn't have let's evolve this. Like, okay, what's better than acceptance and surrender? We don't know. I mean, we'll find out maybe when we pass away. We'll see what's on the other side. If there's anything on the other side, where we go, what we become, what happens. I think that's the evolution of it, but that's not in our human lifetime. So it's what's beautiful about it is that acceptance and surrender, whether it's a health issue, a job issue, a life issue, a family issue, a friend issue, a business issue, pick whatever you want it to be. It could be any issue, any political, religious, whatever it could be, acceptance and surrender. And I love the word surrender, even though they both have negative connotations in English language. Like acceptance means you're weak, surrender means you gave up. It's the opposite. Acceptance and surrender are the utmost, for me, the utmost versions of courage and perseverance in life, but not perseverance and of being able to just say, yes, this is happening, but I choose to live another way.
Well, is it a tough guy?
That choice is
it a tough guy fight to keep on fighting against your brain and not
fight.
Winning?
You're not going to win either.
Yeah, that's so. But let me I just want to tell you a quick thing. I was at a dinner party.
Absolutely.
This
you only have 20 seconds.
And I just want to make sure I'm still consider myself practicing and new with mindfulness and acceptance, and I was at a table of people who knew me very well, and one person turned around and said, "So, what's with this podcast? What is it? What are you doing?" Remember I told you this is not like me though, and people might look at me and doing this now. It's out
of your box. It's
out of my box. But but it kind of is. But it's okay. I'm learning. Anyway, I told him I told him about you. I told him about your struggle, and I told him about your path. And I says, and one day John asked me to fill in on podcasts about mindfulness and acceptance. And like, what's this mindfulness thing? And then they asked me the podcast and where is it? Is it this and this? And people started looking it up and so on. And I said, well, and this is where I pulled them in. I says, do you know what mindfulness is? I says, let me put it in terms that we'll understand, because these are people I kind of grew up with. I said, mindfulness is a lot of understanding that what you're telling yourself is not always the truth. Is that you convincing yourself of the same bullshit you tell yourself over and over and over and over. As unhealthy as it is, you continue to do it because you can't separate yourself from your mind.
Amen.
And using your mind as a tool, just like all tools. And you have to realize that just like your hand is a part of your body, your brain is a part of your body. So, once I told them this, their eyes kind of lit up because that made perfect sense to them, except it was never put in that, I guess that context.
Yeah.
And they seem to really enjoy it. My question to you was, did I hit it on the mark? Was I accurate, or do you think I should have explained it in a different way?
No. So mindfulness, mindfulness is something that isn't easy to explain.
Bro, my jaw dropped open because now I'm on the spot in front of 20 people to explain what mindfulness is. And I'm like,
if somebody tells you 2 seconds,
channeling John.
What's mindfulness? You're like, all right,
I'm channeling John.
Do we have, so even John, when I'm asked that question, I'm kind of like, do you have an hour? Let's have a conversation and you'll understand it as we're talking. But I think the explanation you gave was as good as intelligible as an explanation that you could give somebody in order to make them understand or get a glimpse of what it actually is. And that's true. It's understanding of the struggle, the struggle that we have with our inner voices that we don't, and I'm using a different word, but like with our brain or our mind.
And once I said that to a couple people about, convincing yourself the nonsense, bro, this one lady, one of my friend's wives, her eyes lit up just like, obviously that happens to me. You know what I mean? I'm like, well, this explains how to, keep yourself separate and, and how you can't fight your brain telling you things. You're never going to convince yourself not to say things in your head. It just doesn't work. I said, so you have to accept that it's there and be able to move forward. I said, that's the gist of it. And I think they kind of understood it, to the point where they were asking me the name of it and so on. And so hopefully they're watching, a couple of people catch, and they see it on Facebook, stuff like that. But this one guy is ballsy enough to flat out ask me in front of 20 people what's with the podcast.
Hey, and I have to tell you, what's with the fucking podcast?
Yeah, if it was going to come from anybody, I kind of felt like it was going to come from him.
I'll be the guy.
I should have been better prepared, though.
No, I think your answer was right on. It was a great introduction to, and out of, let's say there was 20 people there, however many people there, even if 2 of them, you sparked curiosity in them, and maybe they listen, and maybe they download 4 or 5 episodes, maybe they spend a few minutes here listening, because I know the episodes are a little long sometimes. But the people who really want to enter this world will sit and listen for a majority of the episode. The people who just want to be supportive might listen for 5 minutes and pass on because they feel they don't need it. In their minds are telling them that the story in their head is fine, and we don't need to change anything.
Nobody feels like they need things until they need things, right?
That's why
you don't need food right now, but an hour or two, you can be like, oh, I need food.
Yeah. Suffering is, and all spiritual teachers will tell you this, it is unfortunately, but yet fortunately, the best way to understand what this is. Because without
my friend, there's a lot of Christianity too.
Yes.
We talk about how they met, just
there's similarities
they
between
meet
the two.
in a lot of places.
Well, I've always said Jesus was a phenomenal spiritual teacher. And he speaks of these things.
They called him that. Yeah. I mean, that's
he
exactly
speaks of these things. I mean, take out the religion part of it. He speaks of just because we're talking about mindfulness. What he speaks of is exactly those things. It's separating your anxieties from your mind and putting them into the universe.
Well, I'm just saying. I was just trying to bring up this.
No, but that's great. I
didn't want to veer you, of course.
No, you didn't veer me off course. That's perfect. So even people out there who are religious, and we said this umpteen times, like if somebody's super religious, I mean, I don't want to say balls to the wall. But like hardcore.
That's the word you're looking for. Okay.
Sorry. Hardcore. Like I'm a hardcore Christian, like church, Easter, Passover. I mean, I do not Passover, but Easter, Christmas, Lent. I mean, I'm ashes. I am a Christian, right out of a book, right? Carbon copy. Yep. This is what Christianity is. I'm the poster child for Christianity. Even that person could listen to this show, and if they just disconnect from the story in their head for a second, we'll see the similarities.
Absolutely,
they'll see the similarities. I
agree.
They'll definitely see the similarities. But so this is sustainable. So let's take. So you know what? Oh, I love that we segued into this. Let's take religion for a second.
Okay.
Because Eckhart actually spoke about this.
I was thinking about religion when you were talking about sustainability of something that can carry you through.
It can. Okay,
I'm curious to hear what you say.
Yeah. So I'm gonna spin it a different way. So I was listening to Eckhart in one of his little podcasts, and he said when he was younger, he was a very religious person, and he would pray to God when he was younger, he was Christian, brought up Christian, Roman Catholic, right?
Mhm.
When he would pray to God, his family life was a little messed up. Like his parents didn't get along. I think his father was an alcoholic. So it was a turbulent household. Let's just say that. And he would always pray that he would pray to God, please make my family life better. Please make my family life better. Never happened. He said at some point he gave up on God because God wasn't answering his prayers, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what he did was he evolved out of it. So I'll get back to that part in a second, but how a hardcore, a person who is a poster child for Christianity, how they could get stuck and lose this sustainability is just that way. They're going to think that if they pray, they're going to get what they want. And when they don't get what they want,
there's a lot of writings about that.
Yeah. When you don't get what you want, right? Oh, now you start to become angry with God because God didn't give you what you want. God's not making the cancer go away. God's not making your wife not cheat on you.
I wouldn't call that person a hardcore Christian, though, because hardcore Christians understand life is about suffering.
Yes.
But I would call that somebody who's
brought up
easily swayed.
But
because if I'm praying and it just doesn't hey, I want to be a bazillionaire one day, and it doesn't happen. I'm not even
talking about bazillionaire. I'm talking about something like Eckhart said, I want my family life, I want my family life. Yeah. And a young person who's impressionable and realizes, why is God not answering my prayers? Why is God not listening to me? Why is this not happening to me?
I could understand a kid
without awareness, you're going to blame the higher divine power. You want to call it God, you want to call it the universe, whatever you want to call it. You're going to blame that energy, that power, that, almighty, that it's not giving you or it's not making your life better. But with awareness, with that sustainability, you understand that suffering that you're going through, if you accept it, all of a sudden
it'll pass.
It not only does it pass, the story in your head starts to change about it. Now, practically, your mom and your dad, like Eckhart's parents, they didn't resolve their issues, right? They ended up getting divorced. He stopped suffering what was happening because he accepted this is how these people are.
How does he know God didn't answer his prayers?
Huh?
How does he know God didn't answer his prayers?
So the prayer.
I'm being devil's advocate.
Oh, okay.
I'm being devil's advocate.
You know what?
I'm not trying to steal your story.
No, you're right.
But I mean, because it didn't happen overnight.
It didn't happen overnight. But he accepted.
He had already.
Well, again, so he's not. He stopped with the whole. He stopped being religious, as I'll say Eckhart told it. Stopped being as far as I am a Roman Catholic.
Okay.
But he never lost faith in a higher divine power because he speaks of it.
And especially at his level, he's lost that attachment to that name.
So for him, it became a consciousness. And once he attached to that, once he understood what that was and he became aware of his thoughts, he didn't need things to be a certain way in his life anymore. And he found peace. So even in suffering, he found peace because he said, I'm aware of the thoughts and the negative thing. I'm aware that I'm very in line with my mind saying things need to be this way.
Can we go a little deeper on this one?
Yeah, we go.
I'm feeling like digging a little deeper.
Yeah.
Well, how does he know God didn't plant?
There's no way of knowing that.
There is no way, but God is God. But if you are an ultra religious person, you would believe that God led you down that path to peace and prosperity. The guy has given lectures now. I mean, he's obviously not a maniac killing people on the streets. So no, I'm saying things have went pretty good, So now that I'm just saying that mindfulness could have been planted by God. Is my point.
Absolutely. But the key point to make there is take out the box. Go out of the box for a second with it, right? God's a great
That's
thing.
As deep
to say.
as I go, by the way. So
no. So get out of the meaning. Get out of the. So I think what he did was he removed himself from a box that maybe did not feel sustainable for him.
Gotcha.
Like in other words, answer, no answer, answer, no answer, question, no answer. And he said, I'm out of this. Hold on a second. I'm going to go to a different plane of consciousness. I'm going to go to a place where I accept things as they are and realize that and he went through, like I said,
he spoke about this, about his religious.
Yeah. Well, he went through an awakening, which happened to him. I think it was his early 20s when he just let go of everything. Like through intense suffering, he let go and found like an inner peace, and that inner peace connected to, he calls it a consciousness. Some people call, awareness, presence, a divine power, whatever we're going to put words to things that we feel that we're connected to, and whatever word works. He took himself out of the box of the religion and said, I don't need a name. I don't need things. I'm connected to something hot. I feel like he feels like he's connected to a consciousness that we're all connected to, like a power that we all feed off of, right? We all feed off the same power, and that's a sustainable energy. That's something that through that acceptance, he's able to keep, no matter what challenges come up in life, find peace in them. But he doesn't need a. It's not about a book or a story or a name.
I gotcha.
But he goes to the top.
It's acceptable to have both.
Of course.
That's what I'm saying. Because that's where I feel like I'm at. I'm at where, I'm Christian and,
but you're
the Bible and Jesus, but I'm able to also be quite aware, of my mind and what I'm telling myself. And,
you can be.
Some religious people say, well, how do you know you're telling yourself that and it's not God speaking to you? Because I can tell my own, own asshole thoughts.
No, but at the end
no way God's telling me some of these things.
At the end of the day, we really don't know. There's nowhere.
No, we don't know. Of course, we don't know, but
we really don't know, and that's where people could get stuck, and they could suffer because I
understand it.
I know plenty of old Italian women that they're religious as hell. I mean,
well, that makes sense. Good.
Yeah, they're religious as heck, right? There's super religious people, but yet they suffer, but not in a way that's releasing them from anything. They suffer every day because things are this.
So imagine if they were aware also, which I feel like I like.
They're missing that key. They're actually missing what I use Jesus. What a person like Jesus actually was speaking about is awareness, is understanding that your worries are in your head. They keep you stuck.
You're right. I also feel like if you're religious or you're even ultra religious or believe it all, listen, if God wants to get in touch with me, he's got my number. It's going to be quite evident if he wants to. So I feel like if I'm hearing inner voice, whatever you're telling yourself over and over, you're not good enough, you're not this, whatever it might be that you keep on telling yourself, a lot of times it's not good. You know what I mean? That you keep on telling yourself these negative things. That negative
talk is usually if you have an unaware mind and you listen to it. You don't pay attention to it.
It's just not good for you to keep telling yourself these things over and over and over.
Your mind's not going to stop giving you negative thoughts. It'll slow down with them for sure. But if you were brought up in a certain way in a certain environment, you're kind of hardwired to that. Now you could unwire that and rewire that. Sure, it takes a little bit of time because neural pathways have to change, blah, blah, blah.
I think it's that our brains are so complicated that as human beings, we can't even wrap ourselves around the fact that there's this one body part sitting on top of our shoulders
which is
that's able to tell us things and make us feel certain ways. But imagine being able to...
Does it tell you things or is it just an antenna that receives messages?
Good point.
I mean, I know this is like, out there stuff that we're talking about.
Like I said, when God has a message for me, it will be damn well clear that he's telling me it. Yeah. I personally believe that. And that's just my...
and I don't think you're...
Why would he mince around and be like, well, maybe he might not know it's me?
I don't think you're wrong.
I think he's going to make it pretty clear.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong in saying any of that. It just, whatever angle you want to take is fine as long as you have that sustainable awareness with it. Because if you don't have that sustainable renewing energy that you could keep, it doesn't run out because that consciousness that you're attached to doesn't run out. That inner peace doesn't run out.
That oil filter doesn't need to change.
No, it doesn't. If you have that, then if church is good for you, then it's great for you. If a mosque is good for you, then that's great for you. If whatever it is,
so religion based in peace and forgiveness. I mean, go for it.
But you're looking through a lens or a filter, that allows you to see it for what it is and understand that. Okay, this is my mind. I don't have to believe everything my mind says. If my mind says this, that's great. Okay, I have now this sustainable practice that helps me deal with life no matter what it throws at me. And if you want to be religious along the way, that's beautiful. It's an amazing thing. It's very wholesome. It's very comforting. It's very beautiful. Even religious customs are beautiful. I mean, they could be, people love those customs because it makes them part of a community. And I think that's all phenomenal. The world should never be done with that. No matter how spiritual the world becomes or how aware of conscious, I think those customs and those religions with awareness are beautiful things, right? Because
and I only bring up the topic so that people that are watching that might feel the way I do about it understand that these things can coexist
as long as you have
awareness. Well, the mindfulness and the religion is what I meant. They can coexist.
Without the awareness, you know what you become? You become an extremist of a religion. Right?
Exactly.
Which has happened in the church and the Hebrew and
every
and
religion.
Muslim.
Every religion has extremists.
Exactly. And we don't want to make this
over the top.
Yeah, we don't want to make this a religious episode, but without that awareness, which is that sustainable, and I keep using that word sustainable because you will not find. And I actually task somebody, go ahead, prove me wrong. Tell me something that's more sustainable than awareness or presence or consciousness, spirituality. I'm not talking about prayers. I'm talking about awareness, a mindfulness, a connected to a consciousness, something where you could see your thoughts or whatever, have the ability to accept something, surrender to it, that it's happening. You can't change it. And yet, take the next step. Now, I'm not saying you're going to take the next step and you're going to be happy as shit. Like, oh my God, this is great. I just lost my job today. No, I think you're bottling up the emotions and eventually they're going to kick you in the ass. It's saying, yes, this sucks. This is happening. But I want to be present right here with my family and my friends. And it's like you took the bag and instead of putting it on your shoulders, you put it down next to you. So the bag is still there. Right? But now you're not carrying that weight anymore. It's just there with you. And every step you take, it just hops with you for now because it's something that you're dealing with, but you're not lugging it with you. Mm-hmm. That's that sustainable energy that I'm talking about. You know, and if you could do it with religion, awesome.
The skill to be able to put down that weight that's weighing you down is immense. And that skill is a skill. It's like riding a bike. It's a skill you won't forget. It's a skill that's easily, you get back on a bike 20 years later, your balance is still there.
It might take you a couple times around the block to.
It might, but I'll bet you
but you don't lose it.
I haven't rode a bike in a long time. I can get on and ride a bike.
Yeah, you can. So what we in awareness we say once you achieve it, you never lose it. It could dim a little bit, but once you re-engage with it, you could quickly
re-energizes.
Yes, you could quickly. That's what I'm saying. It's a sustainable. You know, it's like the Tony Stark. He had the arc reactor. Like it was a sustainable energy. It would just. I know. I always go back to Marvel. It's a sustainable energy that just keeps. It'll keep giving. That it'll keep renewing itself with you as long as you keep practicing.
Yeah,
well,
it's something you learn that you just. It's something that stays with you, and
it's something that drugs won't do. Drugs numb you, or as spiritual teachers tell you, drugs and alcohol, they stop your mind from thinking, but you fall below thought. You don't rise above thought. So awareness takes you above thought where you could watch yourself think and it not affect you. When you're numbing yourself, you fall below thought where you're kind of, your mind's quieter, you feel like you're at peace, but once that substance wears off, the mind kicks back in.
But it also plateaus, and what happens with people is they need more. They need a different, something more hardcore because that numbness isn't working, and then you keep going, and
I think that's where I was going.
Sleeping on 42nd Street. You know?
Yeah, I think that's
that's usually the process.
Doing things for $5 that you shouldn't be doing.
Well, listen, most people who are really, really heavy in drugs will tell you they started with marijuana when they were kids, not as adults. I'm talking about as kids when they were impressionable, and they taught themselves
and they were trying to get away from something.
Exactly, and they taught themselves, well, this is the way I do it. I numb it, and I keep numbing it. Then the marijuana doesn't work, and he snorts cocaine, and it just never ends. It's not sustainable, is what John is trying to say.
It's not.
So with something like mindfulness and awareness, that is something that once you learn it, it's almost like I said, bike riding. You're going to get on a bike. If you need it again, it will be applicable and you'll be able to use it.
It's very sustainable. It is 100%.
That's a good topic. I like the topic because I didn't see how that could come or go, but it went nice.
Yeah, no, and it's one of those things that if you practice it, it never leaves you. You see life differently. You filter things differently. You approach life differently. No matter what's going on, you might not like what's happening in your life at the moment, and that's fine. You don't have to like what's going on a practical level, but you're not going to suffer that moment anymore because you've chosen to surrender to it and no longer need to ask a question. Well, now oh my God, I gotta stop thinking about this. I can't take these thoughts. Or how do I distract myself so I don't worry about this or I don't think about this? Those questions always bring you back to where you were when you started. They never take you. There's never an answer to them. You keep going in a loop. It's
once
about
you stop swimming upstream and you start swimming with the current, it goes much easier.
Or get off the merry-go-round. You decide to step off the merry-go-round. And all of a sudden you're looking at the merry-go-round going, holy shit, I was really getting dizzy on that thing. Yes, you were.
Yes.
So choose to get off it. So yeah. So I love that, that whole it's something. It's the only thing, in my opinion, and from my experiences in life, that is sustainable enough to endure whatever life is throwing at you. And it'll get you through, not that you're going to live forever, but it'll get you through whatever you're dealing with, and it will minimize any suffering and pain that you're unfortunately going to have to endure if you're dealing with something in life. And if you want to understand how it works, I mean,
Started episode 1.
Started episode 1. Honestly, if you started episode 1,
you want to learn how to use this? Started episode 1.
Read the book or
what a great tool. And John's book, obviously. But just a fantastic tool. I just want to tell people, what an amazing tool it can be. And like John said, it's sustainable. It's not something you have to learn over and over. It's not a cult. It's about learning about how you think.
Sometimes.
I just got to throw it out there.
Yeah, people think that. You're absolutely right.
I would imagine that they would, but because it becomes a way of life. And anything that becomes a way of life, people think, oh, it's taking over your brain. But it's just about understanding how you think and how you put yourself into depressions and how you break out of them. I mean, listen, there are people I know that are just so happy about life. They're positive energies. I love being around those people.
Yeah.
They are my favorite people, even though I'm probably not that person to anybody. But to me, those people are fantastic. They have a positive energy. They have an awareness about life and they feed themselves the good stories. They don't repeat the bad ones over and over and over because they understand that that's just a bump in life. And they're looking at all these great things that they want to do. And so what? The whole weekend is planned and they got a flat tire and everything's ruined. You know what I'm saying? When in reality, you've got a whole weekend planned. So fix the flat and move on. Another analogy, ladies and gentlemen, right here. You heard it first.
It's very easy.
Right?
It's very easy to say it. Practicing it,
it's another thing. It's easier over time.
Oh my God, no! Not only does it get easier, but the benefits are tremendous.
They are. Because let's be honest, since we were kids, we struggle with our own thoughts and problems, and especially the closer you are to that OCD, that everything's got to be perfect in the right place. This, that. Once you get once you're like that, your whole life.
Well, once you have if you have an obsessive mind, thinks obsessively about things.
I did. I know I did.
I mean, then that's that. So that could be another hurdle that's in your place, but it's not okay. So now, how do I attack that? How do I get past that? It's the same.
Would you
formula.
Say it is what it is also a great awareness
if you understand what it means?
You know what I mean? No, I'm saying about any given thing you're having a problem with.
It is what it is.
And you just go, you know what?
That's old adage makes tons of sense.
Right? But it kind of feels like what awareness and acceptance is.
Yes.
Because you're accepting that it is what it is. And I'm not going to be able to change it right now.
I agree with you 100%.
Right?
But I would say 90% of people who say that don't actually understand what it really means.
You're right. Okay.
They say to make themselves feel better. It is what it is. But then their mind comes in and goes, but that's fucking bullshit. That shouldn't be happening. Why is this happening to me? I can't stand him. He should be doing this.
You know what? It is what it is. Might have been for something that's small, and then something big hits him over the head, and it is what it is. Isn't covering that anymore.
But it does.
And if they understood, meant the deeper meaning of it, they would be able to sustain it.
It is what it is on a flat tire. It's easy to say.
Easy to say.
It is what it is when you have a fight with a family member.
Yeah, or you lose your job and you can't support your family.
So now it is what it is. It is what it is. Isn't a I don't give a fuck.
No,
whatever.
No.
No, it's
acceptance.
It's just happened. It is what it is. But I always
surrender. What you say?
Yeah, and the only time we'll leave it off with this. Like I should end every show on this. When you no longer, and in my book, my last sentence in my book was sometimes the answer to the question is there is no answer. And that's why I to this day, the editor who edited my book, she goes, that is a phenomenal way to end the book. She goes, sometimes the answer to the question is there is no answer. And accepting that is what frees you from everything. There is no answer. How do I stop this? You can't. How do I get rid of this? There is no getting rid of it. But you could accept it and surrender it. And if you no longer need to ask a question, like my mind will tell me sometimes if something's happening to me or my tinnitus is acting up and it's a lot of my mind's going to want to go, but why today? Why? How do I? And I'll look at it and I'll say, thank you very much. I appreciate it, but I accept that you're here. And it doesn't make the issue go away, but it changes my relationship 110% with the issue. Instead of suffering the issue, now it's here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here, but it's here. It's not here anymore. It's not like, oh my God, I got this thing on my fuck. I can't get rid of this thing. So,
well, it is what it is, John.
It is what it is.
No, that's how we should end every podcast.
It is.
Hey, Henry, it is what it is.
It is what it is. Signing off. It is what it is. So, anyway.
I mean, let's be honest. It's the perfect slang for acceptance.
Took us 83 episodes, but we got to it. It is what it is. Thank you, Anthony.
Well, thanks for having me, John.
I can't get rid of you.
Yes, how did you try?
So, all right. That's another episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Henry will be back next week, and we'll be all three of us again.
Take care, guys.
Jiving and jamming. Until then, stay safe, and everybody be well. Peace out. Take care, man. The insights and discussions that we speak about on our show are our own opinions and based on our life experiences. If you or someone in your family or someone you know is suffering and in need of help, please get them that help through medical attention or seeking proper therapy. Again, what we speak about are based on our experiences and not intended to be taken as a form of therapy. Thank you.